Gambling is a very addictive pastime. It is widely done in a large variety of places throughout the United States. Gambling can have many very good economic benefits, but gambling is not all good and fun. Gambling can have many negative effects on people, including mental disorder and causing substance abuse. This is Warren Strain. He worked with the Mississippi Gaming Commission for a few years and is very knowledgeable about the many of the things that happen within the walls of a casino.
So, Mr. Strain, what did you notice about gambling while working at the Gaming Commission?
Well, they went from a zero to a $2 billion industry in a very short period of time. One advantage that the state of Mississippi did over some of the other emerging jurisdictions back in the early 90s was that Mississippi adopted essentially the Gaming Control Act that was in place in Nevada. Basically, in a manner of speaking, they took the Gaming Control Act from Nevada, whited out Nevada, and wrote in Mississippi. So ours mirrored the Gaming Control Act of Nevada. That means that the operators who were operating in Las Vegas, Reno, and other parts of the state of Nevada were easily adaptive to come to Mississippi. They liked the Gaming Control Act because it was so similar. Also, 12% taxation rate was very attractive to the major operators in Las Vegas and the other parts of Nevada because it was such a low rate of taxation. They could come in, develop, and still be able to make a profit. And so we saw rapid development in the state of Mississippi because they're familiar. We saw a very rapid growth in the state of Mississippi because the Gaming Control Act was so similar to Nevada's. That way the operators could come into the regulatory system in Mississippi, which was very much the same as the regulatory system in Nevada, and the low taxation rate made it very attractive for the major operators in Las Vegas to move into Mississippi, which they did, clustered in the Tunica County area and also along the Mississippi Gulf Coast and then sprinkled along the Mississippi River. But primarily in the heavy population areas like close to Memphis, Tunica County, and then also along the Gulf Coast of Mississippi because of the water, the other attractions there, golf and deep sea fishing, and etc. So the gaming industry grew quite rapidly in those early days. Somebody made the analogy as similar to a rocket ship taking off, trying to build it as that rocket ship's taking off. But the industry grew very rapidly and was very beneficial to the state of Mississippi because not only was there tax revenues coming into the state, also it employed at one point up to 30,000 people. So those people had jobs. They were able to go out and buy cars and, of course, groceries and other amenities that put that tax back into the state's economy. So it was very good for Mississippi's economy, not necessarily just because of the taxes that were collected by the state, but also the 7-time rollover effect in the state economy from the employment statistics.
What did you do while you worked there?
There were a lot of different duties that I did there. Of course, the Gaming Commission at that time was a very small state agency and was a brand new state agency. So there were a lot of duties that were shared among many of us there. Primarily, I was a communications guy, public relations kind of guy, and so we did a lot of that. We were actually trying to promote an industry that an illegal activity actually was made legal by the state legislature. So being here in this part of the South and the conservative nature of this area, it was not readily adapted. Now, we were not trying to be a proponent for the gambling industry, so to speak, but we were trying to bolster the image of the regulatory body to make sure that people understood that the gaming and casino industry was being regulated appropriately and there was no type of criminal activity or other shady goings on in the casinos.
Casinos, while they can have many benefits, can encourage mental issues such as diseased gambling, which is also known as gambling addiction. Dr. Jean Dabbitt is a psychologist who has her own practice here in Mississippi. Here are some words from her.
Dr. Dabbitt, how often do you have patients with gambling addiction?
In my practice, only a small percentage of the people that I see have a problem with gambling addiction.
In your opinion, what's the best way to avoid having a gambling addiction without just avoiding the casino as a whole?
In my professional opinion, the best way to prevent having a gambling addiction is to practice self-awareness. I think it's very important to be self-aware and to make sure that the gambling behavior does not cause physical, mental, and emotional problems. If it does, then it becomes an issue.
What are your opinions on casinos and gambling in general?
My opinions on casino gambling is that if it's used as a social and recreational activity, then that's perfectly okay. But it becomes a problem if it causes symptoms of anxiety and depression. And if it does, then it needs to be avoided completely. But as long as it's used for harmless fun, then I think casino gambling is okay.
Casinos also have many economic benefits. There are some cities that are almost completely reliant on the presence of casinos. So, as you've seen here, having a casino in your city is somewhat of a double-edged sword. It has benefits, but it also has some negative sides as well. Mostly are taken out on the populace.